19-year-old Kaylee Mandadi was a sophomore at Trinity University in San Antonio, Texas. Her college friends described her as a cheerful, kind, and radiant young woman. A former cheerleader, Kaylee was deeply involved in the university's community life and had a natural talent for making new friends. During her freshman year, she met a football player named Jett, and the two quickly fell in love. Kaylee believed Jett was a serious and reliable partner, but by her sophomore year, she met someone else. Mark Howerton, a 22-year-old former high school baseball star, lived in Houston but frequently visited Trinity University to see his friends. It was during one of these visits that he met Kaylee. By that time, Kaylee and Jett had grown distant. Feeling that Mark might be a better match, Kaylee started spending more and more time with him. Jett and Mark were aware of each other, and neither was happy about Kaylee's involvement with both of them. After a month of this tense love triangle, a tragic event occurred that would change their lives forever. On Sunday, October 29, 2017, Kaylee Mandadi attended the Mala Luna Music Festival in San Antonio with her boyfriend, Mark Howerton. They enjoyed the lively event, surrounded by a large crowd. However, later that night, at approximately 10:30 p.m., Mark drove Kaylee, who was unconscious, to a small rural hospital in Luling, Texas. The police, alerted by medical staff, arrived at the hospital and interviewed Mark in the quietest location they could find, a chapel near the medical center. Mark told officers that he and Kaylee had spent the weekend at the music festival, where they consumed alcohol and illegal substances. He explained that around 5 or 6 p.m., they left the festival in his Mercedes and got into an argument on the way. Kaylee had confessed that she still had feelings for Jett. Mark tried to convince her that her ex was a bad influence and urged her to cut ties with him and his friends. The argument ended when they stopped at a gas station and had sex in the car. Mark admitted that their intimacy was rough that evening. He held Kaylee by the neck and lightly choked her during the act, something he claimed they both enjoyed. Afterward, they talked for about 5 minutes before Kaylee suddenly said, "I don't feel well," and lost consciousness. She lay in the passenger seat, undressed and unresponsive, and began snoring. Mark decided to drive Kaylee to his home in Houston. As he started the car, she stopped snoring. Feeling uneasy, he checked for a pulse but couldn't find one. Panicked, he decided to drive her to the nearest hospital instead. When Kaylee's mother, Alison, arrived at the hospital and saw her daughter in the ICU, she thought Kaylee had fallen from a great height or been in a severe car accident. Tubes and IV lines surrounded her daughter, and her face was unrecognizable. Kaylee remained unconscious in intensive care for 2 days. She had suffered a traumatic brain injury. Despite the doctor's efforts, her condition worsened. She went into cardiac arrest 7 times, and her heart stopped each time. Doctors eventually informed Alison and Kaylee's stepfather that there was no hope of recovery. Kaylee's brain was no longer functioning. Knowing her daughter's wishes, Alison consented to donate Kaylee's organs to help others. Kaylee was taken off life support and passed away. 3 months after Kaylee's death, a forensic medical examination concluded that she had died from blunt force trauma to her face and head. Investigators were certain the injuries indicated intentional harm. However, they couldn't find any witnesses who could shed light on what had happened that night. What was clear was that Kaylee's death was not natural. Kaylee's ex-boyfriend, Jett, revealed that he had seen Kaylee and Mark at the festival that day. He witnessed them arguing before Mark grabbed Kaylee by the hand, led her to his car, placed her in the passenger seat, and drove away. Weeks after the forensic report was released, Mark Howerton was charged with kidnapping, sexual assault, and the murder of Kaylee Mandadi. Mark pleaded not guilty to all charges. In December 2019, 2 years after Kaylee's death, Mark stood trial. Despite maintaining his innocence, he faced the possibility of life in prison. The prosecution argued that on October 29, 2017, during a music festival, Howerton forcibly took Kaylee into his car. He then drove her to a parking lot where he sexually assaulted and brutally beat her, including delivering a severe blow to her head. This resulted in a fatal brain hemorrhage. When Kaylee was taken to the hospital 18 hours later, doctors noted numerous bruises across her body. Mark's attorney, John Hunter, claimed that no one truly knows what happened that fateful night since there were no witnesses. He argued that the bruises on Kaylee's body could have been caused by medical personnel during their attempts to resuscitate her. Paramedic Sherry Lane also testified in court. That night, she was driving an ambulance to Luling Hospital when she noticed a car suddenly appear behind her, flashing its headlights. Sherry pulled over, got out, and saw a man in a Mercedes yelling that he needed help. She looked inside Howerton's car and saw an unconscious young woman in the front passenger seat. The woman was completely undressed, with her jeans and shirt lying on the floor beneath the seat. Sherry recalled seeing bruises on the inside of Kaylee's thighs. She tried to resuscitate her by performing CPR, but it didn't work. They rushed to the nearest hospital. Doctors initially suspected that Kaylee had overdosed on drugs her body couldn't handle. On the day of the tragedy, police questioned Mark and took photos of him. They noted red marks on his hands, fingertips, and the backs of his hands, resembling scratches from a struggle. Mark Howerton, who was arrested in October 2017, was known for his heavily muscular build. Kaylee's friends mentioned that he used steroids. After spending 2 years in jail awaiting trial, Mark's appearance had drastically changed without the support of those substances. His muscles had significantly diminished. On the day of the incident, police searched Mark's Mercedes and found a gun and illegal substances. If Mark had been concerned about legalities, he might have insisted on a warrant for the search, but at that moment he seemed more worried about Kaylee's condition. Following Kaylee's death, after she was taken off life support, Mark changed his version of what happened that Sunday evening. He claimed that he and Kaylee had been intimate not at the gas station but earlier in a parking lot. He said Kaylee became unwell and lost consciousness, and only afterward did they drive to the gas station. This placed their intimate encounter outside an office building about 60 miles from the gas station. The medical examiner presented photos from Kaylee's autopsy, showing that she appeared to have been attacked. Her body was covered in bruises, and her ribs were broken. The examiner asserted that Kaylee died from a severe blow to the head with a blunt object. Mark's attorney continued to insist that the extensive injuries were caused by doctors trying to save her. Kaylee's roommate, Morgan Sampson, recounted an incident that occurred just weeks before the tragedy. Morgan had invited Kaylee to a party, and Kaylee eagerly agreed. Mark, however, became angry when he learned about it. When Morgan returned to the room, she was shocked to see Mark and Kaylee on the balcony, where Mark had grabbed Kaylee by the neck and pushed her against a brick wall. Despite Mark's objections, Kaylee went to the party. Another roommate overheard Mark shouting on the phone in Kaylee's room afterward, threatening to smash her face. He was furious and trashed the room. Concerned by the noise, the roommate called 911. When the police arrived on the 5th floor at the room 561, they saw a man exiting Kaylee's room, Mark Howerton. They questioned him, and Mark claimed Kaylee was his girlfriend and had gone to the party with a friend. He didn't want officers entering her room, but after speaking with him, they decided to check it anyway. Inside, they were horrified. Kaylee's belongings were scattered everywhere. Some of her clothes had been thrown off the balcony and were hanging on trees. Mark had smashed the glass balcony door as well as Kaylee's laptop. After this incident, Mark was banned from the dorm. Kaylee decided to end their relationship, stopped responding to his calls and texts and tried to distance herself. Mark was enraged and refused to let her go. He sent her a Snapchat photo of himself with a gun in his mouth, threatening to shoot himself if she didn't answer his call. Mandadi shared her concerns with a friend, admitting that she feared for her safety. At the same time, she reached out to her ex-boyfriend, Jett, confessing that she wanted to get back together with him. Later, she wrote to him, saying she loved them both, Mark and Jett. At the end of October 2017, Kaylee Mandadi told Jett she planned to break up with Mark at the Mala Luna Music Festival, which they were scheduled to attend on October 29th. She deliberately chose this venue, thinking that breaking up with Mark in a crowded place would prevent him from doing anything harmful. Mandadi had a sense of foreboding. Her ex-boyfriend, Jett, confirmed this in court, revealing that he and Kelly had been intimate the day before her death, and she had expressed her feelings to him. Another witness in court was Joe Goodwin, a friend of both Kelly and Mark. He testified that on Sunday, October 29th, he and Mark went to Kelly's dorm room to pick her up for the festival, but she wasn't there. Mark was angry. After waiting a short while, he and Joe went outside, where they ran into Kelly. The three of them got into a car, stopped at a nearby car wash to use illegal substances, and then headed to the music festival. They continued using substances and drinking at the festival. At some point, Jett appeared at the event and saw Kelly and Mark from a distance. He noticed that they were arguing, and Kelly was distancing herself from Mark. Jett saw Mark forcibly grab Kelly by the arm, lead her away from the festival, and put her into his car. Jett's account of Mark forcing Kelly into his car led to Mark being charged with kidnapping. Late that evening, Kelly's dorm friends started calling her to find out where she had gone. Mandadi didn't answer. Eventually, Mark picked up one of the calls. He said Kelly couldn't talk and hung up. He also cursed out one of Kelly's friends who had tried to contact her on Snapchat. Mark recorded a short video mocking her friends, calling them stupid and telling them to leave him alone. Later in court, Jett admitted that he had lied about seeing Mark forcibly put Kelly into his Mercedes. Jett confessed that he had exaggerated to draw more attention to Kelly's case. Investigators also found photos on Jett's phone showing large bags of illegal substances. It was revealed that Jett was involved in a separate criminal case connected to those photos. He had been distributing substances to university students. It turned out Jett had been offered immunity in exchange for his testimony. Dr. William Anderson also testified, stating that after reviewing post-mortem photos of Kelly, he found no injuries on her face. The bruises on her body, he explained, could have resulted from medical procedures. He suggested that Kelly might have accidentally fallen, hit her head, and later lost consciousness. An expert witness commented on the effects of the substances Kelly had used that day. Her toxicology report revealed an extremely high level of the substance in her system, which could have caused a significant spike in her blood pressure. At such levels, even a minor injury could have been fatal. After 7 days of testimony, Mark Howerton's fate was in the hands of the jury. However, just hours into deliberations, Mark's attorney received a call from a new witness, a woman who had worked the registration desk at the hospital the night Kaylee Mandadi was brought in. She claimed to remember seeing Kelly's pale, white legs, which, she insisted, were free of bruises. The attorney brought this information to the court, but the judge ruled it was too late to call a new witness. 2 days later, the judge announced the jury's decision. After thorough deliberation, we, unfortunately, could not reach a unanimous verdict. All jurors have maintained their firm positions and refused to change them despite the evidence presented by the defense. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I declare this trial a mistrial, the judge stated. In June 2022, an appellate court granted permission for a retrial in Mark Howerton's case. The date for the new trial has not yet been set. Kelly's mother, Alison Steele, remains convinced that Mark assaulted her daughter, leading to her death in the hospital. She hopes that justice will soon prevail and that the perpetrator will be held accountable to the fullest extent of the law. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more stories hiding dark secrets like this one. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes people aren't who they seem to be. See you in the next video.